Hello, Emanuel Shahaf.
Hello, hello.
Identity, the quest for Israel's future, the book, the lectures, and also new meetings in the Israeli parliament and government. Please share the last updates.
I had a meeting day before yesterday with Diaspora Minister Nachman Shai, the first minister of the government who met with me. I actually met Isawi Frej, the Minister for Regional Development, but I met him
a few days
before the government was installed. So technically, Shai is the first one I met from the government. Nachman Shai, we know each other from years before from the Labour Party, and he also knows the Federation proposal from then. So the meeting was to reacquaint him with what's going on, and also possibly to get him to support discussing the Federation in the framework of the government or around it. Unfortunately, that didn't work quite so well as I was hoping for. He was very adamant about the fact that the government, as it is now, does not intend to deal at all with the conflict with the Palestinians.
Yet he was willing to create the meeting to let you and them to make it public.
Yes, he didn't have a problem with making the meeting public, and he also he and his advisor suggested that I go to the Labour Party to try to advance the Federation, because presently the Labour Party, and he is of course a member of the Labour Party, is committed to the two-state solution. So he probably would feel more comfortable if the Labour Party would say, you know, why don't you look at something else? So I'm going to do that.
So when the Labour Party and Minister Shah are talking about the two-state solution as part of the idea that they are going for so many years, what would be your response towards that idea nowadays?
The two-state solution is not implementable anymore, and
why?
Because for political reasons. There's a two-thirds majority in the Knesset against the two-state solution at this time. I don't think anybody in his right mind will be able to predict that the situation will improve enough to bring about an acceptance of the two-state solution. The situation on the ground doesn't lend itself to a separation of the scale which is necessary. So I think if only to get the discussion going, alternatives have to be discussed. And even if people see that the alternatives are possibly much more problematic, then people may finally go towards the two-state solution. But not to discuss alternatives is the worst of all.
And while talking about alternatives, you also had an encounter, a meeting, also with a parliament member in the Israeli Knesset, a senior one, a person with a lot of background in security. What can you share with respect of that dialogue, the initial dialogue?
The initial dialogue, it turned out that he had no background on the proposal, and he was a bit flustered. He was a bit taken aback by some of the particulars of the proposal, and it's quite clear that we have to have another we have to have a meeting in which I'll explain to him about the details of the program, so he can relate to it more in more more understanding what's going on.
Yet he was willing to talk about it, to understand, to open his mind for new ideas.
Yes. Sure. There's a basic openness. There is no, sadly enough, there's no. They don't feel under any pressure to consider alternatives. There's no pressure at all, not with Nachman Shai and not with the parliament member. Everybody is completely relaxed, as if we are not in a very critical situation right now, which can turn badly against us at any day.
We'll talk about the situation nowadays in Gaza, but yet you had another meeting with people that are part of the Israeli administration in one of the ministries in the Israeli government, that they are willing to open their mind to a practical conversations regarding the implementing of the federation.
That was an interesting meeting with advisors to a minister who did their background work on the federation, so they knew what I was talking about. And they asked me quite a lot of questions, and in the end they sent me home to do some homework, which is good, because they wanted to be able to quantify what we're talking about, because they consider to consider policy. So that's actually a lot of progress that somebody there willing to do that. So I'm looking forward to doing my homework for them, which won't be easy, but it's definitely worthwhile doing it.
Let's say that, if I understand you correctly, the homework is creating a practical approach regarding the federation movement and implementation, how it can be done practically.
How it can be done and how much does it cost. That's one of the main concerns. Okay, how much does it cost? Of course, in that respect, the federation is a huge advantage over any alternative, but it's easy to say that, and now I've been put into a situation where I have to substantiate that, and that won't be easy, but I'll get to it.
And also, you might take under consideration that in that financial program, the alternatives of more security, more army forces, more occupation, it has added values, financial values, that are huge.
Yes. Obviously, the federation is a huge economic bonus for Israel and for the Palestinians, with implications which go way into the future. So I'm not concerned about that part, but it's difficult. It's not easy to demonstrate that at this stage. So, but I'll do my best.
Now you're talking about that people that you're talking and meeting in the Israeli government and administration and Israeli Knesset, they are not feeling the urge. So as a former member in the Israeli Mossad, then you're talking with people, seeing people here in the Middle East, what do you think might happen? Now we have another demonstration in the Gaza Strip in the coming days. What do you think might happen?
Well, there's a considerable danger that this whole very fragile situation will go off kilter. Okay, it doesn't take very much to start another cycle of violence here, and with the Palestinians demonstrating in Gaza, with the army ready to shoot, and with the situation in the mixed Jewish-Arab cities in Israel still being tense, this can change to the worse very quickly. And now I have no doubt that the security forces will be able to contain whatever comes of this, but the implications are much more severe, and we're going to have to deal with it eventually. And right now, nobody appears to have the feeling that we need to deal with anything except what's on the daily agenda. The conflict is not on the agenda, and the conflict is driving things. It's driving a lot of things, and we have to deal with it.
Another thing is the meeting, the great meeting, the first one between the Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, and the President of the United States, Joe Biden. What do you think? This interview is being held a few days before the meeting. What do you think could be a concrete understanding in between the two governments?
I think the most important thing is to agree on what to do with Iran. I think that it's critical. It's critical for Israel to be on the same page with the U.S. government, with the president, to calm our nerves and also to calm the American nerves, because I think they wouldn't like Israel to go off track, which we did with our previous government, with very, very bad results. Okay, because when Netanyahu's government basically influenced the Trump administration to break off the JCPOA with Iran, that started all hell broke loose, and Iran is where it is now, and that's very much our own. Even though the Trump administration did it, we had a lot to do with it.
Pulling the strings.
Pulling the strings, yes. And so to be on the same page with the U.S. government is very important. And
regardless of on the question of what is going to be written on the page.
It's almost regardless, because if you don't work together, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to achieve a better outcome going off than being on the same page with the U.S. government. And I'm sure that Bennett will be able to influence what is written on the page to some extent. Not completely, but to some extent.
So you're saying it's better for the Israeli government and also the American to write together the same page.
Absolutely. To write the same page is extremely important to get back on track and to deal with Iran, and then not to forget to deal with the conflict, which I don't know whether it'll come up in Washington, but I think it should.
And maybe after passing the Israeli governmental budget. Identity, the Quest for Israel's Future by Emanuel Shahaf. I want to thank you very much. People here, there that want to be part of this journey, just to look over Facebook.
Facebook. Just contact me through there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.